is approximately just about where this building is right now, back before the
BNSF
university
Unit
had a campus here
5973,
on the west side, the west bank
5718,
of the river. It's
and
a great
old
time
Santa
to go to
Fe
school.
paint
There was ferment in the air. This suited us,
8726.
who were 17 and 18 years
In
old
Kansas City.
back in 1960.
I'm trying not to interrupt the radio program.
In the air, and to hear bullhorns from the lawn in front of Kaufman Union, and people railing against the government, and rallies, and choirs singing, and we all sang these beautiful hymns of the civil rights movement back then. We all knew this song, and we'd stand
Stuck in traffic while heading to college.
12 times standing up in the main ballroom of Kaufman Union. Pete Seeger was giving a concert or something, and we all sang from the bottoms of our hearts, even though we didn't really believe it applied to us necessarily. We sang, "We shall overcome." We sang, "We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday." Oh, we didn't believe it, though. I mean, for ourselves, if somebody would overcome somewhere. When you worked in a parking lot, you worked in the early morning shift, and it got to be January. You were there at 5 o'clock in the morning with 8 other parking lot attendants in your white smocks, all crowded into a shack around an electric heater. It was cold out there. And it was an enormous parking lot, gravel, no lines painted on it at all. And there were 4 ticket sellers. Tickets were 15 cents. You paid 15 cents to come in. And they sold the tickets, and then there were 2 parkers. There was one at the top of the lot. This is a 8, 10, did I say 10 acre? Let's make it a 50 acre parking lot. One directed the cars down my way at the bottom of the hill. That would have been just like right over there. We're just on the edge of the bluff here. And this big gravel parking on his back over there. It was pitch black. You wore white gloves, but you had to make eye contact with each incoming car,
as you speak.
and you had to direct it to its correct space. So you had parallel double rows of cars with an aisle going down the middle, and everybody should have enough room so that they could get out during the day. You stood there and you exercised all of the power that you could possibly have to make that car come right down here and park right there. It was an
the left 2
amazing
lanes are
thing for an
closed.
18-year-old person. You
Right
come
at
to
this
the
exit.
university to read novels and to study metaphor and symbolism. But here is what you really learned was to use force to serve the common good and not to allow any individualism whatsoever. Any comedians who were wanting to strike out on their own and park ironically and park a little bit short or a little bit far. No, you have to park right there. You have to bring the nose of your car exactly there to learn how to make people do that and to exercise absolute authority. I never thought I would ever learn that, but you learned it parking cars at the university. The ticket sellers didn't learn anything. 15 cents. Nobody had the correct change. Everybody was in a big hurry. They just learned to deal with human aggravation. People would stick a dollar bill out the window and they'd have to count out those 3 quarters and the dime, and running out of change, the crew chief sat in the shack where it was warm. He counted the money. He wrapped up the dimes. The rest of us worked to create this system that would work for everybody. Double rows, parallel, no innovative parking. Everybody right here. And if anybody got out of line, you stopped everything. And you went over and you spoke to them. It was quite amazing. I realized after I'd been at the university for just a few months that my natural talent for taking multiple choice tests that I'd picked up in high school, where you could hear by the tone of the answers which one was the right one. And back in the 1950s, the correct one almost always was C. So that if you always answered C, you'd probably get a C in the course. That talent didn't work for much here at the university. So I knew that brilliance would not get me very far whatsoever. I knew that I was going to have to find something else to do. And that's how I got into radio. I got a job at the university radio station, MMR, up in Kaufman Union on the 3rd floor. It was a little closed circuit station. It transmitted using the electrical systems of the dormitory as an antenna, so that if you plugged in your radio anywhere in a dormitory, you could pick up WMMR at 570. I had high hopes for myself in radio. Not that I would overcome, but
we're close to Missouri because I keep seeing a lot of Missouri tags.
I was able to affect a kind of friendliness that I didn't possess, except in a parking lot with white gloves at 6 o'clock in the morning in the winter. But you tuned into 570, and in the evening, we always had rock and roll shows.
Well, that was Johnny Mathis and I Wanna Love You. And now, moving to number 4 on the WMMR hit parade, it's Elvis. Slay me like a fool, treating me cool.
That was rock and roll every evening on W. And all these guys who hoped to get jobs at top 40 radio stations. And late at night, there was cool jazz.
Working our way through the late night hours, making connections and intersections with east and west, north and south. It's Barry's Place, with yours truly, Barry Halper. Tonight, sounds of Charles Mingus, with poetic interludes by Karen Halverson.
Line of silver, the cloud. Oh, the cloud. Singly in the blue sky. And yet, there, and there, and there, and there, and there shines the sun. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes. It shines on me, baby.
Our broadcast day started about 12 noon. We didn't do early morning radio for some reason. We just didn't care to go out of our way. We started at 10:30 in the morning with Public Affairs Forum, where they discussed important issues.
Today, we're discussing foreign policy in a world of change, and my guest
Typically, the
is
word would be
Assistant
filming,
Professor
because
of
if I were
Political
shooting at
Science,
him, there'd be
Professor
something wrong
Larry
with me.
Johnson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As you pointed out, Sharon, we do live in a changing world when the old certainties are changing, and we see the emergence of new forces, new influences, and we enter into a time of tremendous uncertainty, but also of great opportunity.
Okay.
It's not to say that we should give in to fear and
Told you.
retreat from the world. It means that we need to seek greater understanding of the factors that complicate change.
Not that I know
and
about
the
this, but still, told
underlying
you.
forces that may cause crises, redefine the objectives of foreign policy. We face broad challenges that transcend political borders and affect whole
You gotta at
regions
least drive
or
back
even
it
the entire
far enough
globe.
that you can tell
And
them
so,
construction.
international cooperation is paramount as we deal with change and the impact
That's a bumper,
of
Mom.
change.
Good sign
Our
to stop.
policy needs to be flexible but principled, more focused and yet innovative as we pursue our own goals, but with consideration for the greater good. Choices will need to be made, many of them difficult and even painful, but to choose is itself a choice.
Okay.
Above all, we need to have clear objectives if we're to play an effective role. The situation is evolving and relationships are changing, but good relations remain paramount as we pursue long-term goals. New approaches are needed if we're to continue to occupy a position of leadership.
Okay. Well, that's all the time we have today on
public